Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kent Eiler, President and CEO of Eiler Networking and Computing, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today. Our webinar today that we're covering is titled Justice League Level Security, CJIS Compliance for Real Heroes. For the first responders that are attending today, I want to thank you for your service, and I do consider you our real heroes. I know compliance training isn't always the most exciting topic, but I promise to make this practical, straightforward, and directly relevant to the work that you do every day. We're going to talk about CJIS compliance, what that is, why it matters to your agency, and most importantly, what you need to do about it. I'll do my best to not use technical jargon and no overwhelming details, just the information you need to protect your agency and serve your community. At the end, I'll answer any questions you've got. Just click on the question mark button and enter any questions during the presentation. And again, at the end, I'll go through any questions that we've got. So let me start by sharing my screen with you. Just take a second here. All right. So again, we've titled this Justice League Level Security, targeting it for specific first responders and community agencies. We're going to talk about who this presentation is for as well. And so this is designed for leaders and decision makers who may not be IT experts, but who are still responsible for making sure their agencies operate safely and legally. So this includes law enforcement administrators, municipal leaders, court administrators, records managers, and anyone else who oversees systems that contain criminal justice information. If you're thinking, I'm not a tech person, I don't know if this applies to me, it does. This is about leadership and accountability, not about knowing how to configure a firewall. You don't need to be technical, but you do need to understand what's required and make sure that it gets done. So here's the agenda that we're going to cover today. First, I'll explain what CJIS is in plain English and any acronyms or technical terms that apply. Then we'll talk about why compliance matters to your agency specifically, not just in theory. We'll review what changed in the 2025 requirements that went into effect this year. Then, this is the most important part, we'll discuss what you actually need to do, not someday, not eventually, but in the next 30, 60, and 90 days. And finally, I'll show you how to get things started and where to get help if you need it. But before we dive in, let me give you a quick background on Eiler Networking and Computing. And so here at Eiler Networking and Computing, we're a managed services and security provider. This is our 31st year in business, and we're headquartered here in Sheffield Village, Ohio. This is just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. But we also have locations in Iowa and South Carolina. We do fully managed IT, which means we are the IT department for small to mid-sized businesses. But if you're a larger business that has an IT department, we come alongside and do co-managed services. This is where we assist companies with an IT department with the heavier lifting type things. So when it comes to server security, licenses, creating a cybersecurity policy and procedures, those types of things that IT departments may need some assistance with. So they can still handle the day-to-day help desk type things, but we can come in and make sure that everything's secure and protected. One of the things that differentiates us as a managed services provider from some of our competition is we answer the phone live during working hours. There's no press 1 for technical support, press 2 for sales, that type of thing. When you call our number, you're going to get a live person on the other end. We also have 4 different assurance service plans to meet your IT needs. Every client is different. And so we can even customize these 4 to tailor them specifically to what your IT needs are. We offer compliance as a service. So this is one type of compliance we're talking about today, CJIS. But we've also done webinars that have helped clients with PCI DSS compliance, NIST CSF, FTC safeguards, HIPAA, many of those different ones. So depending on what your organization needs for compliance, we can come alongside and partner with you to make sure those compliance requirements are met. The other thing that separates us from our competition is all of our techs, not just a few of them, are CJIS certified. And that'll make more sense after we discuss the topics today. But the criminal justice information services. And so all of our techs have that background. And so we can definitely protect your company as well. So one of the things that happened here recently to us was the MSP Titans of the Industry Gala. This was a red carpet event held in Beverly Hills, which is definitely outside of my comfort zone. It was hosted at the iconic Beverly Hills, which is the same venue where the Golden Globe Awards take place. The evening was truly unforgettable. The event featured appearances by Jay Leno and Magic Johnson, which really added to the excitement and prestige of the night. But we were honored to be recognized as one of only 10 managed service providers globally named as finalists for excellence in one of the key markets that we support. So this recognition is a testament to the level of commitment, innovation, and service we provide to all of our clients. Being selected at this level underscores the trust our clients place in us and reflects on our relentless pursuit of excellence in IT support, cybersecurity, and compliance. But enough of that. Let's dive in now to today's topic. Before we go any further, let's just go through a quick glossary of terms you'll hear throughout this presentation. IT and obviously CJIS is filled with a lot of acronyms, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what these acronyms we're going to talk about today is. So CJIS stands for the Criminal Justice Information Services. It's the FBI division that creates the security rulebook that we're going to be talking about today, and they define what these compliance requirements are. CJI is the Criminal Justice Information. It's the actual data. That's your arrest records, warrants, fingerprints, case files. If it's connected to the justice system and identifies someone, it's CJI. The NCIC is the National Crime Information Center. This is the system your officers use every day to check for warrants, stolen vehicles, and missing persons. Access to NCIC requires CJIS compliance. MFA, you'll hear this a lot today, but this stands for multi-factor authentication, and it simply means logging in requires two things: your password and a code from a special device. Think of it as an ATM. You need your card and your PIN in order to get into there. CSO is the CJIS Systems Officer. This is the person in your state who handles CJIS compliance, conducts audits, and answers your questions. You should know who your CSO is. MSP is the managed services provider. They're an outside company like we are, like IT firms. Can also be software providers who can access your systems, and all of them must follow CJIS rules. And then remote access. Remote access is logging in from anywhere outside your physical building. It can be from home, from a patrol car, from a coffee shop. Anytime you're not on site to where that CJIS information or CGI information is stored, that is considered remote access. So don't worry if you don't remember all of these terms right now. I'll explain them as we go along as well. I just wanted to give you this reference point so when I use these terms, you'll know what I'm talking about. So CJIS, again, stands for the Criminal Justice Information Services. It's a division of the FBI that creates the security rule for how we handle criminal justice data. Think of it this way. If your agency uses criminal records, fingerprints, warrants, or accesses national databases like the NCIC, then you're handling what's called criminal justice information. We'll refer to that as CJI for short. The FBI has very specific rules about how that information must be protected. And obviously, the rules exist for good reasons. First, to protect citizens' privacy. This is sensitive personal information. Second, to protect officers, because access to the wrong information by the wrong people can put lives at risk. And third, to maintain the integrity of the justice system itself. CJIS compliance isn't optional. If you want to access the FBI and state criminal justice systems, you must follow these rules, period. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, we're a small agency. Do these rules still really apply to us? Yes, they apply to every single agency, regardless of size. A 2-person police department has the same requirements as a 100-person department. The FBI doesn't have different rules for small agencies. So what exactly is criminal justice information? So we talked about the high level, but let's go into a little bit deeper dive of this and some examples. So arrest records and active warrants, fingerprints and booking photos, case files and investigation notes, results from background checks. Anything you receive from NCIC or your state crime database is considered CJI. It also includes data that identifies people involved in the justice system. So victims, suspects, witnesses. When that data is connected to criminal justice purposes, that is CJI. But here's what surprises most people. CGI just doesn't live in your records management system. It can be in emails, it can be in Word documents or on someone's desktop or laptop. It can be in files saved to shared drives, stored on backup tapes, or even cached on the hard drives of an office copier. So you make copies of that, and that copier keeps a record of it, then that copier has access to the CGI. If you've ever printed a warrant or emailed a case summary file, that information still exists somewhere in your system. And all of that has to be protected according to CJIS standards. That's why the first step in compliance is knowing where your criminal justice information lives. You can't protect what you don't know you have. So let me be very direct about why CJIS compliance matters to your agency. The first thing we'll talk about is access. Your ability to access the NCIC and state criminal justice databases depends on compliance. If you fall out of compliance and lose that access, your officers can't check for warrants during traffic stops. They can't verify if someone is a registered offender. They can't access critical information that keeps them safe. Your agency's ability to function effectively stops. The second is funding. Many federal and state grants require proof of CJIS compliance. If you're applying for grants or other justice funding, you'll need to demonstrate compliance. Non-compliance can cost you money. Third is liability. If your agency experiences a data breach and is determined you weren't following CJIS requirements, you face potential lawsuits, regulatory penalties, and personal liability for decision makers. The question in court won't be, was this hack sophisticated? It will be, were you following the FBI security rules? If the answer is no, you have a big problem. Fourth is trust. Your community trusts you with their most sensitive information. When someone reports a crime, gets arrested, or is involved in an investigation, they expect that information to be handled professionally and securely. A data breach doesn't just create legal problems, it destroys public confidence. So compliance isn't about checking a box, it's about protecting your agency's ability to do its job and maintaining the trust of the community you serve. So what happens if you're not compliant? Let's paint a picture of what non-compliant actually looks like. Imagine it's a Tuesday morning, an officer pulls someone over for a broken taillight. They run the license plate and nothing happens. The system doesn't respond. They try to check for warrants. Still nothing. Why? Well, because your state CJIS authority conducted a compliance audit, found significant deficiencies, and suspended your agency's access to the NCIC pending remediation. Suddenly, every traffic stop is potentially dangerous because your officers can't realize or access real-time information about the person they're pulling over. Background checks for gun purchases are delayed or impossible. You can't process fingerprints electronically. Your investigators can't query national databases for case information. Your agency in this situation is essentially operating blind. And this isn't a hypothetical situation. It happens. Agencies lose access every year because they couldn't demonstrate compliance. Beyond access issues, there are financial consequences. If a data breach occurs and you weren't compliant, your insurance may not cover it. You could face fines from state regulators. You could lose grant funding. And there's reputational damage. When the local news reports that your agency lost access to criminal databases because you failed a security audit, that's not a story that goes away quickly. The bottom line, non-compliance has real, immediate operational consequences. It's not a distant threat. It's something that can shut down core functions of your agency. So what changed for 2025? There's quite a few things that happened that's new. So there's the CJIS Security Policy version 5.9 that was published back in June 1, 2020. So that was over 5 years ago. There's a significant update in version 5.9.5. This was released in July 9th of last year, 2024, with Priority 1 requirements enforceable as of October 1st of 2024. The next major revision is version 6.0, and that was issued December 27th of 2024, with audits scheduled to start this month in October of 2025. These latest updates aren't a complete overhaul, but there are 4 significant changes that you need to know about. The first one is stricter login security and cybersecurity protection. Multi-factor authentication, which we'll explain in detail in a moment, is now required for anyone accessing systems remotely or with administrative privileges. Every system accessing CJIS information also has an EDR and MDR on it, and vulnerability scans for all computers and networks, even in MDTs and vehicles, has to happen. This isn't a suggestion, it's mandatory. Second, there's more oversight of outside vendors that's required. If you use a managed services provider, cloud software, or have contractors who can access your systems, you are now explicitly responsible for ensuring that they are also compliant. You must have signed agreements, and you must verify their compliance, not just trust them. Third, better record keeping is required. You must document who has access to what, track when they use it, and maintain logs. The FBI wants to see evidence that you're actively monitoring and managing access to criminal justice information. And then fourth is stronger audit expectations. State CJIS authorities are increasing the frequency and depth of audits. They're not just looking at whether you have a policy on paper, they want to see evidence that you're actually implementing it. These changes reflect a reality we all know. Cyber threats are increasing. Ransomware attacks on government agencies are common. Data breaches make headlines. The FBI is raising standards because the stakes are higher and these cyber attacks are more frequent. The good news is these changes are logical and achievable. They're not asking you to become cybersecurity experts. They're asking you to implement proven, effective security practices. Here in the Cleveland area, last year, the city of Cleveland was down for 2 weeks due to a cyber attack. Earlier this year, Cuyahoga County, which is where Cleveland lives, their court systems were down for about 2 weeks. The city of Columbus had 3 terabytes of private information stolen and leaked on the dark web last year. Lorain County, Ohio, which is where we reside, Isler Networking and Computing, was down for over 2 weeks as well this year for a cyber attack. So you can see these things are very serious and significant. And even if you're a small organization, don't think that you're exempt or going to be not a target. So let me spend a few minutes on the single biggest change, multi-factor authentication, or MFA. So here's where MFA is and what it is in the simplest of terms. It means you have to have 2 different things to prove who you are when you log in. So think about when you withdraw money from an ATM. You need your bank card, that's something you have, and you need a PIN, that's something you know. That's 2-factor authentication. When you call into the bank and need to get information about the account, they're going to ask you something. They could ask you for additional information besides just your account number. And this additional information is very similar to MFA. So you enter your password, which is something you know, and then you get a code on your phone, something you have, or another device, and you enter that too. Only then can you log in. So why is this important? Why does it matter? Because passwords alone are no longer secure. Hackers steal passwords all the time through phishing emails, through data breaches, or simply guessing or using what's called a brute force attack. This is when they just go through and have computers automatically try every single possible combination for a password. But if your password gets stolen, the hacker still can't get in without having this MFA code on your phone or your MFA device. MFA blocks 99% of automated attacks. It's the single most effective security control you can implement it. Now, here's what the new CJIS policy requires. MFA must be used for any remote access to systems containing CJI or the criminal justice information. That means if someone logs in from home, from a patrol car, from a laptop, or from a smartphone, they must use MFA. It also applies to anyone with administrative or privileged access, even if they're logging in from inside your police station or building. Why? Because those accounts have elevated permissions and are high-value targets for attackers. So who needs MFA? Officers accessing systems remotely, record staff working on these systems, your IT provider logging in to manage your servers, anyone with admin rights, and yes, that includes your vendors. The deadline for MFA implementation is already passed, so if you're not using it yet, you're already out of compliance, and this needs to be your top priority. Now, you might be thinking this sounds complicated and expensive. It's actually neither. Most systems already support MFA. You just need to turn it on. But if you don't have a system that has MFA, we can create a system and have solutions for you. Most VPNs and remote desktop tools, they support it. Your Office system supports it, and most CJIS systems support that as well. So the technology exists. The challenge is making sure it's enabled and your team knows how to use it. So it's typically something you can implement in days, not months. And it's, again, the number one thing that will protect your agency from the most common attacks. So if your agency uses access control badges to get in, we can typically even utilize those as well as an MFA solution. So you don't need to purchase expensive like YubiKey key fobs that many departments are using. The issue with those is they're small and they're easily lost, and then you've got to buy new ones. However, if you do want to use the YubiKey key fobs, we help departments with that as well. So whatever your solution is, or if you don't know, we can work with you to figure out what the best solution is for your department and agency. The second major change in 2025 is around vendor accountability. Most agencies do rely on outside help. You might have a managed services provider like Eiler Networking and Computing who maintains your network, a software company that hosts your records management system in the cloud, a consultant who helps with IT projects. If any of these vendors can access systems that contain criminal justice information, the CJIS rules apply to them as well. But here's what's new. You are now explicitly responsible for their compliance. You can't just assume your IT company knows the rules. You can't take a vendor's rules for it when they say, oh yeah, we're CJIS compliant. You must have a signed CJIS security addendum with every vendor who touches your system. This is a contract that spells out their obligations under CJIS policy. Next, you must verify that vendor employees who access your systems have undergone the background checks. It's the same background checks requirements that apply to your staff, apply to them as well. Third, confirm that they're using MFA. If your IT company is remotely accessing your servers without MFA authentication, they're putting you out of compliance, even if everything else you do is perfect. Fourth, maintain documentation. You need records of vendor agreements, proof of background checks, evidence of their security practices, and dates of the reviews. And here's why this matters. If a vendor causes a data breach, it's not just their problem. It's going to be yours. You are accountable as well. I've seen agencies fail audits because their IT provider didn't have current background checks on file, or because a cloud provider couldn't produce documentation showing they met encryption standards. Even a vendor who was logged in with shared passwords, that can be a big problem. So none of these issues were the agency's faults, but they become the agency's problem. So here's what you need to do. Make a list of every vendor with access to your systems, then contact each one and request a signed CJIS security addendum, proof of the background checks of their employees, documentation of their security practices, and confirmation that they're using MFA. If they can't provide this, or if they push back, that's a big red flag. You may need to find a different provider. I know that's not easy, especially in rural areas where options are limited, but it's better to address this now than fail an audit and lose access to the NCIC. One more thing, these vendors relationships, review these vendor relationships annually. People leave companies, security practices change, and contracts expire. This is not a one-time check. It's an ongoing responsibility that you've got to do annually. So let me talk about two things that sound boring but are absolutely critical: documentation and training. Yay. First, documentation. The CJIS policy requires written policies covering everything from password management to incident response to how you handle mobile devices. These can't just exist in theory. They have to be written down, approved by leadership, and accessible to staff. You also need documentation of implementation. It's not enough to have a policy that says we use MFA. You need records showing when you turned it on, who uses it, and evidence that it's actually working. And it's important to keep track of evidence. As your systems change, you have to have this proof. So when an audit comes, or if a data breach comes, you can go back and show at a given point in time that you have been doing what you need to do in your due diligence. When auditors arrive, the first thing they ask is for that documentation. If you can't produce the written policies, user agreements, training records, and audit logs, you're starting from a position of non-compliance. Second is training. Every person who handles CJI must complete CJIS training annually. This includes sworn officers, civilian staff, IT personnel, and yes, even elected officials if they have access to these systems. The training doesn't have to be complicated. Your state CJIS authority likely provides free online training. It only takes about an hour, but you've got to document that people have completed it. And they typically will provide a certification for each employee or each person that shows that it's completed and what that time frame is. Have that in your proof of evidence so you've got it when the audits come around. So here's a test you can do. If I ask you right now, can you show me proof that everyone on your staff completed CJIS training this year? Can you produce that documentation in 5 minutes? If not, that's a compliance gap. The good news is documentation and training are not expensive. They don't require new technology or complicated implementations. They require process, accountability, and follow through. Assign someone in your agency to be the CJIS coordinator, someone who tracks training, maintains documentations, and keeps policies updated. It doesn't have to be a full-time job, but it does have to be someone's clear responsibility. That way, when the audits come, and it will come, documentation is your shield. Proves that you are taking this seriously. If you don't have someone that has the time to do this, or you want to hire someone who's an expert in this, talk to a partner like us. We do this for many different clients, and we keep track of that proof of evidence. And so when the audits come, we can show you exactly what is needed for your internal staff and for any vendors that have to happen. All right, let's go over your 90-day action plan. So if you walked out of here today and say, I need to get compliant, or I need to get up to date to be compliant, where do I start? So let's talk about the first 30 days. So your first job is to figure out what you have and where you are. Make a list of every system that touches CJI. That includes your records management system, email, file servers, backup systems, mobile devices, everything. Then identify who has access to these systems. Make a list of staff, vendors, contractors, anyone with login credentials. Next, conduct what's called a gap analysis. Compare what you're doing now against what CJIS requires. Do you have MFA enabled? Do you have signed vendor agreements? Are your policies written and current? Do you have proof that all of your employees have read and agreed to these policies? Do you have training records? Are you still using Windows 10? By the end of this month, October of 2025, all systems need to be upgraded to Windows 11 because Windows 10 won't be supported anymore. If you're not doing that, you're not compliant. This also is when you contact your state CJIS authority. Every state has a CJIS systems officer or CSO. Introduce yourself. Ask what their audit schedule looks like. Ask for any state-specific guidance or templates that they can provide. They're here to help you get compliant. After you do that, the next 30 days, so days 31 through 60, is when you do the implementation and you start fixing the gaps that you found in the step one. So priority one is enable multi-factor authentication on all remote access. It's low-hanging fruit and delivers the biggest security improvement. Step two, address vendor compliance. Contact every single vendor, request documentation, and get those CJIS security addendums signed. Next step, and the final step we'll cover here for this step, is to update or create your written policies. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. CJIS provides templates. Many states offer model policies, and we have a group of policies that we have as well. Adapt them to your agency and get them formally approved, and then get them distributed to your employees and your vendors, have them read them and sign that they agree to them. This is also when you implement logging and monitoring. Make sure your systems are tracking who accesses what and when. And then for the days 61 through 90, that's when we're going to look at the training and documentation. So schedule CJIS training for all staff, have everyone complete it, and keep records of completion. And this is not just the state-run CJIS training. We also want you to be doing phishing and cybersecurity training. You know, your employees are your biggest risk for a cyber threat, and having them go through that training to make sure they know the steps to take to protect your agency is super important, super critical. So have employees sign user agreements acknowledging that they understand their responsibilities. We also have training that goes through and shows when employees have completed that training. We recommend that the cybersecurity training and anti-phishing training happens on a quarterly basis. Statistics prove that if you go through the training and don't do it for 5 to 6 months, then employees start clicking on things they shouldn't. So it's important to make sure the security is at the front of all of your employees and vendors' minds. We also have the ability to do simulated phishing training. This will send your employees phishing attempts and tell if anyone actually clicks on them to go through. It's not to beat them up, but it's helped to educate them and also improve the security of your agency. Then you've got to document everything you've done. Create a compliance binder. This can be physical or digital, that contains policies, vendor agreements, training records, background check documentation, and evidence of security controls. That evidence is crucial. And again, it's not just a one and done. As things change, as you add new policies and get new signatures from either vendors, employees, add these to that documentation. Then schedule an internal audit. Go through your own documentation as if you were the state auditor. What would they ask for? Can you prove it? At the end of 90 days, you won't be perfect, but you'll be substantially more compliant than you are today. And you'll have a clear roadmap for ongoing improvement. One important note, don't try to do all this yourself. It's a team effort. Engage your IT staff, your administrative team, and your leadership. If you need outside help, reach out to experts. That's what we're here for. All right, here's some quick wins that we can talk about. So I'm going to take a quick drink here real quick. Excuse me, I've got a tickle in my throat. I'm going to mute myself here. All right, sorry, I think that took care of it. Okay. So anyway, we're going to talk about quick wins. What do you do early? So 90 days, 3 months sounds like a long time. So let's try to cover 4 things that you can do this month in the next 30 days that's going to make a significant difference. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So the first one, enable MFA on email, remote access, and any other systems you've got. So contact your IT provider today and ask them to make sure that multi-factor authentication is enabled for Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace or any other system that you use. Enable it for VPN or remote desktop access. This could be a 15-minute task for someone who knows what they're doing. But again, it gets you to that 99% protected state. Next, quick win number 2 is inventory your vendors. Make a spreadsheet. List every vendor with access to your systems, include IT providers, software companies, cloud services, consultants, everyone. Add columns for, do we have a CJIS security addendum? Do they use MFA? Have their employees pass background checks? You don't have to solve every problem this month, but you need to know what problems are. And then you can create the to-do list for resolving them. Quick one number 3 is schedule CJIS training. Go to your state CJIS authority's website right now and look for the online training. Most of you probably already have this. Just make sure that people don't let that training expire because it has to be done annually. Register yourself and your leadership team and complete it this month and verify that it's been done for this year. Lead by example. And then quick one number 4 is review your written policies. Pull out your security policies if you have them and read them. Are they current? Do they mention MFA? Do they address vendor management? If not, they need to be updated. If you don't have any policies, download a template from your state CJIS office or from FBI resources and start there, or reach out to a partner like us that has these templates as well. These 4 actions won't get you to 100% compliance, but they'll demonstrate good faith effort. It'll reduce your risk significantly and set you up for success on the long-term work. And honestly, if you only did these 4 things, you'd be ahead of a lot of agencies. So what are some common pitfalls that you want to avoid? So here are 5 common mistakes I see agencies make and how you can avoid them. So the first one is shared passwords. There are still some agencies where multiple people use the same login credentials, especially for systems, accounts, or shared computers. Every user must have a unique username and password, no exceptions. This goes back to logging. When an incident or a data breach happens, we've got to be able to track that down and trace it back to how that happened and which user was responsible for that. If you've got shared passwords, shared users, or shared login credentials, that's impossible. Pitfall number 2, forgotten vendor access. Let's say you had a consultant 5 years ago that helped you set up your network. They still have a login, or a software vendor has remote access credentials that you forgot about. Do a full audit of all accounts and disable anything that's no longer actively needed. Here in Lorraine County, Ohio, there's a small company, 20 employees, and they had a employee that no longer worked there. They hadn't worked there for 2 years, but their account was still active. They ended up having a ransomware breach because that account got hacked. And it would have been protected if they would have simply disabled that account after that employee left. So very simple things to do. Just make sure that you follow these things and have policies to make sure as soon as an employee leaves, their access or vendor, their access is terminated immediately. Pitfall number 3 is outdated contracts. Your vendor agreement was signed in 2018 and doesn't mention MFA or the new 2025 requirements. Contracts need to be updated regularly. Pitfall number 4, no documentation of security measures. You enabled MFA, but you didn't document when, how, or who uses it. When the auditor asks for proof, you have nothing to show. Document everything. And pitfall number 5, assuming IT handles it. Compliance is not just an IT issue, it's a leadership issue. IT may have a big part of this, but you can't delegate responsibility entirely. Leadership must be engaged, ask questions, review documentation, and hold people accountable. Avoid these pitfalls and you will be in much better shape. So let me briefly mention how Eiler Networking and Computing can support your compliance efforts. We offer compliance assessments where we come in, review your current state, identify gaps, and give you a clear roadmap. We provide implementation support, helping you enable MFA, review vendor contracts, configure logging, and document your security controls. We have systems that will track your user acceptance and keep track of all of that for evidence for when you have an audit or if you have a data breach. We develop and customize policies tailored to your agency, and we facilitate staff training and coordinate with your state CJIS authority on your behalf. We offer ongoing compliance management, so this doesn't become a set it and forget it situation. This is something that is ongoing, especially if your systems change at all. You have to make sure that your policies are updated to incorporate those changes. Our goal is to take the technical burden off of your shoulders so you can focus on your mission while we ensure that you stay compliant. We've helped dozens of agencies from small police departments to county-wide systems navigate these requirements successfully, and we can help yours. So where do you go from here? First, sign up for our free network assessment. This will help you determine any vulnerabilities that you may have. You can sign up for that on our website, and I'll provide a link on our next slide for this. Second, if you'd like a personalized compliance assessment, reach out and schedule a consultation. We'll review your specific situation and give you a realistic action plan. Third, don't wait. The longer you delay, the more risk you're taking and the harder it is to catch up. You can reach us via email at compliance@eiler.com or visit our website. It's www.eiler.com. That's ILER.com. Remember, CJIS compliance isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about taking things seriously, making consistent improvements, and demonstrating good faith effort to protect the data your community trusts you with. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So thank you all for your attention, taking this issue seriously. And now I'm going to open up for questions. What concerns do you have? What challenges are you facing? What's still unclear? Go through, enter that question mark, click on the question mark there, and I'll go through and answer those questions. I see that we've got a few of them here. Before I hit the questions, I'm going to address the things on this slide. So you can go to eiler.com/analysis and sign up for that free network analysis. We can only do a few of them each month. So the QR code will take you there as well. You can also reach out to us on our 800 number. It's 877-250-4537. Do this for any questions about compliance for this network analysis, or if you want to email us, you can email compliance@eiler.com. All that information is right there. So even if you're not one of our clients today, you have an issue, our response team is available 24/7, 365 for emergency support. So we can provide immediate guidance if you have an issue through there. All right, let's get to a couple of questions that have been asked. So what are the new or recently strengthened requirements we should especially watch for? Again, we've covered some of those, but to point out some of the most important ones, I guess, or those ones, the advanced authentication, so that MFA has to be implemented. Stronger encryption data access requirements also for data at rest and in transit. That means your backup has to be encrypted and should be not able to be changed if ransomware comes in. Increased scrutiny on cloud services and vendors to make sure compliance when hosting. We talked about that. Having these agreements that all of your vendors will sign, making sure that they're following the same requirements that you are. I would say an emphasis on incident response or audit logging for systems that handle CJI, and making sure that all of your systems have that EDR, MDR, that's endpoint detection and response, or managed detection and response. That will mean if some type of ransomware gets in there, we try to stop it before it can get throughout your entire system. The mandated vulnerability scanning is also new. So in our area, for example, a lot of the departments didn't have any of these advanced scanning on their MDTs and their vehicles. They would only use those MDTs to connect to the county's 911 environment and aren't used for anything else. But with these new CJIS requirements, the MDTs have to have regular vulnerability scans and an EDR, MDR installed on those as well. Good question. All right, the next one, who is responsible for compliance within an organization? Okay, that's a great question. So the CSP requires that each agency or entity designate roles for compliance. So that often would include a CJIS security officer or equivalent oversight by the CSA in the state. So they will handle the management control agreements with vendors, et cetera. So that organization's leadership must ensure policies, training controls, and audits are in place. So make sure you have a single person designated for that purpose as well. Good question. All right, what background or personnel security requirements apply? All right, that's a good question there. So personnel who have access to the CJI, the CJIS, or the criminal justice information, they have to go do fingerprinting, have background checks, and be vetted according to the state's and CSP's personnel security controls, and receive security awareness training that goes over every year. You've got to keep doing that. And so that's the main thing for those requirements. Okay, I've got a couple more here. How do we stay current with policy updates and ensure ongoing compliance? That's a great question. If you didn't know about these new requirements that just came into place, you can set up alerts for that. So monitor for new versions of the CSP that's published by the FBI and state CSAs. So conduct regular internal reviews, gap assessments, risk assessments, and update policies and procedures accordingly. But you can also sign up for email alerts to make sure when these new changes come out that you're going to be alerted of them. And then to stay current, make sure, again, your vendor contracts and technical controls are reviewed at least annually. You've got to do that, if not every year, maybe multiple times a year, especially when major changes occur either to the CJIS requirements or to your internal systems. And as we've said, document changes and maintain audit-ready records all the time. And one last question is, how long does it take to become compliant? So that can change, but again, we don't have to get you 100% compliant right away. The important thing is taking that first step. So we talked about the 30, 60, and 90-day steps. It can take up to 6 months to get fully compliant, depending on the state of your compliance today. If you were compliant except for these last few things, the last changes that were required for 2025, you could feasibly be compliant within 30 and 60 days if you start immediately. But if you weren't compliant already before these last changes, it could take you possibly 6 months to a year. Give us a call today. We can help you with that assessment to help get that roadmap and give you an idea for what it's going to take to do that. All right. I don't have any other questions at this time. So again, I appreciate you for taking the time to join us today. Compliance can feel overwhelming, but remember, you don't have to do it alone. Reach out to your state CJIS authority, lean on partners like us, and take it one step at a time. Your work matters, the data you handle matters, and the security you put in place protects not just your agency, but every person in your community. So let's make sure you get this right. So thank you for your service and your commitment to excellence. May God bless you, and may God bless the USA. Thanks for joining.